You know that old saying, your pee should be sterile?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, you can pretty much forget about it. Sorry to burst your bubble, especially if you've ever considered Bear Grylls more rustic hydration tips.
Right. For ages, centuries even, doctors, scientists, everyone just assumed the urinary tract was this, microbe-free zone.
Exactly. But get this. Only in the last few years, really, has that entire idea been turned completely on its head.
And it's a really good thing it has, actually. It opens up so much.
It really does. Because it fits into this bigger picture, right? This massive world inside us.
The human microbiome, yeah. We're talking trillions of microbes, bacteria, viruses, fungi, all living in and on our bodies.
It's like this incredibly complex city constantly working.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, say, digestion, though that's huge. These microbes are vital for protecting our skin.
And there's even research, pretty cutting-edge stuff, looking at links to our mental well-being.
It's quite amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And think of it like different climates across the globe.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to find the same animals in the desert as you do in the ocean.
Oh,
right?
it's a good analogy. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of the same with microbes in our bodies. Some love the stomach acid, others prefer the gut.
Different ecosystems.
Totally. But the urinary system, the kidneys, bladder, all the connecting tubes, that was always seen as the exception. Like, totally sterile, a blank slate.
And that idea, it really goes way back. You mentioned Louis Pasteur, 19th century.
Right.
And it stuck largely because of the methods they had back then. Scientists would take urine samples, try to grow bacteria on those petri dishes. Ultramarine, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the standard method.
And with pee, they just kept coming up empty. Nothing grew.
Zilch. Nada.
So the logical conclusion at the time was, well, nothing must be there.
Case closed. Or so they thought. I mean, apparently there were a few scientists over the years who were like, maybe not.
Yeah, a few dissenting voices, but they didn't really gain traction against that dominant idea. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Around 2008, when the big human microbiome project kicked off.
Right, aiming to map out all the microbes in our bodies.
Guess which system got left out of the initial plan?
Let me guess. The urinary system.
Bingo. Because everyone still thought it was sterile.
That just shows how strong that belief was. But then came the game changer. These huge advances in genetic sequencing.
The DNA stuff.
Exactly. Suddenly, we didn't need to grow the microbes anymore. We could just find their genetic fingerprints, their DNA and RNA.
Like microbial forensics.
Kind of. It let us see the evidence of bacteria that were always there, but just wouldn't cooperate in the lab. And that changed everything.
And lo and behold.
Lo and behold, urine was one of the places where they started finding these previously hidden microbial signatures.
So it's confirmed now. The urinary tract definitely has its own microbial community.
Absolutely. It's maybe not as diverse or as packed as, say, your gut microbiome, but it's there. It exists.
And now scientists are digging into this urinary microbiome, and they're finding some pretty compelling links to those common urinary problems, UTIs, kidney stones, stuff a lot of people deal with.
Precisely. So just to kind of wrap up this first part, we've journeyed from this centuries-old idea of sterile urine to realizing, nope, there's a whole microbial world in there, the urinary microbiome.
And it seems like this microbiome is actually pretty important for our urinary health.
It really does seem that way, that the evidence is building strongly in that direction.
Okay, so let's talk about that health connection. E. coli. Most people have probably heard of that one, right?
Yeah, it's a very common bacterium. Can be totally normal in the urinary tract, actually.
But sometimes it causes trouble.
Right. If certain strains get in the wrong place or if they overgrow, that's when you run into problems. And it's the main bug behind, about 3/4 of urinary tract infections? UTIs.
Ugh, UTIs.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants those. They're painful. And I hear they can actually make you more likely to get kidney stones, too.
That connection is definitely there, unfortunately. And what's really interesting is how E. coli seems to interact with another group of bacteria, Lactobacillus.
Ah, lactobacillus, like in yogurt and stuff.
Yeah.
The good bacteria.
Exactly. Those the ones often promoted for gut health. It seems like there's a kind of balancing act happening in the urinary tract, too.
Between the E. coli and the lactobacillus.
Yeah. While problematic E. coli can trigger infections, Lactobacillus seems to play a protective role, maybe by making the environment less friendly for E. coli to take hold.
Okay, so like a defense mechanism. And you mentioned kidney stones. This microbial battle affects those too.
It looks that way. Kidney stones, you know, those tiny, hard mineral deposits that form in urine?
Painful just thinking about them.
Extremely painful to pass, yeah. And about 10% of people get them. Plus, having one makes you more prone to others, which isn't great for long-term kidney health.
So how did the bacteria fit in?
Well, there was this really cool study just published in 2024 in Nature Communications. Researchers basically built these artificial kidneys.
Artificial kidneys. Wow.
Yeah, and they circulated artificial urine through them. Then they introduced either E. coli or Lactobacillus.
Okay, what happened?
It was pretty striking. The systems with E. coli started forming these crystal structures really similar to actual kidney stones.
Oh.
But in the systems with Lactobacillus, the crystals that formed were much, much smaller. It looked like the Lactobacillus was somehow stopping them from growing properly.
So the good bacteria were fighting stone formation too.
That's what the researchers concluded. It seems Lactobacillus, just like with UTIs, might counteract the stone-promoting effects of E. coli.
Okay, so the obvious question then is, right, if Lactobacillus is so great, should I just start chugging yogurt or popping probiotic pills to stop UTIs and kidney stones?
Huh. Yeah, that's the logical next thought, isn't it? But unfortunately, it's probably not quite that straightforward.
Okay. Too easy.
Well, like we said, this whole field, understanding the urinary microbiome, it's still really new. We're just starting to figure out how it all works.
So applying it is tricky.
Exactly. Researchers are definitely looking hard at whether probiotics, pills containing lactobacillus, or other good bacteria can actually help with these urinary issues. But so far, the results are kind of mixed.
Mixed how?
Well, there was one small study suggesting probiotics might help prevent recurrent UTIs in perimenopausal women, which is, promising.
Okay, that's something.
It is. But right now, there isn't really strong evidence that taking lactobacillus stops you from getting that first UTI.
Gotcha. And for kidney stones, similar story.
Pretty much. Again, there's some interesting research both in people and animals looking at probiotics for managing or preventing stones, but we're definitely not at the point where doctors are routinely prescribing them for that purpose.
It's still early days then.
Very much so. But here's another angle that's getting attention: the potential role of antibiotics.
Antibiotics. How do they fit in?
Well, think about it. What's the standard treatment for a UTI?
Antibiotic.
Right. And we use them for tons of other infections, too. But there's some early research, mostly in mice so far, suggesting that overusing antibiotics might actually mess with the kidney microbiome.
Mess with it how?
It might decrease the beneficial lactobacillus and potentially allow more E. coli to flourish. And some people are wondering if that shift could be linked to the fact that kidney stone rates seem to have been increasing over the last few decades.
Whoa. So the treatment for one problem might inadvertently contribute to another down the line.
It's a question being seriously considered. It definitely makes you think about the long-term impacts of our common medical practices on these internal ecosystems.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's not just UTIs and stones, is it? I read they're looking at links to other things, too.
That's right. Scientists are starting to explore possible connections between urine bacteria and conditions like bladder cancer, even things like urinary incontinence.
Wow. So this field is really just exploding.
It absolutely is. As I said, it's early days, but they're optimistic days, too. Current treatments for kidney stones and UTIs aren't going away overnight, obviously.
Right. Stick with what works for now.
For now, yes. But the future, it might involve much more personalized approaches. Maybe looking at your specific urinary microbiome to tailor treatment.
So maybe less of the broad spectrum antibiotics and more targeted bacteria.
It's conceivable. Down the line, maybe doctors will be prescribing specific beneficial bacteria to help keep your urinary system balanced and healthy.
That's pretty wild to think about, this hidden world inside us and how our whole understanding is just shifting.
It really is. It opens up completely new possibilities for how we might manage health in the future. Working with the microbes that live with us and within us makes you rethink your own body, doesn't it?